God is good, and with each day that passes brings us a day closer to the launch of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. This is the Nathan Napalm channel, and if you are new here, please consider subscribing, especially if you're interested in Pantheon related content on our march to launch. Today guys, I want to talk a little bit about the latest update we got on January 16th, 2020, in which they kind of gave us an update on what they've been doing the past couple of weeks and all that kind of thing, and we're just going to jump right to it. So I'm going to show a clip, a piece of it, and then we're going to talk about it. I think that's the best way to cover everything they talked about that I felt was super vital. And here we go.
The Grand Wizard himself, the Mastro, Mr. Chris Perkins.
What is a Mastro, David?
There we go.
You know, the Mastro, the composer of all, the Grand Pumbaa.
Okay, so I found some relevance in this, okay? Maybe I'm a little bit too sensitive to everything I hear that's possible because I'm pretty obsessed with Pantheon, but what I'm seeing here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never seen an introduction like that for Joppa. So Chris Perkins is, correct me if you feel differently, but he is kind of the guy now. The main guy. He was always super important in development, right? He was always a big, strong information giver and someone who was always talking and kind of leading the conversation. Obviously, as we talked about a lot in the Nathan Napalm Discord, Chris Perkins is the deal now. So he is a creative director, but I felt like in the introduction, and I won't talk about this for very long, I promise, but I feel like that really made it clear to me that it wasn't just my imagination. But yes, of course, as creative director, of course he has a lot of responsibilities. Of course he has a lot to do with the oversight of every single meticulous detail happening in the development of the game. Of course, right? But he's never been introduced that way, right? We kind of need a strong character in the development that we can latch on to and kind of put our trust in, right? Because the game's not out yet, so we need to put our trust in a person. Unfortunately, with the passing of Brad McQuaid, he was that guy, right? There was, I don't have to go into that. We all know, right? But Chris is, in my opinion, doing a ridiculously good job filling in what should be a void. There should be this vacuum void there, right? And there's kind of not. There's kind of this passion and drive that's actually almost supernatural, and Chris is doing a great job of that. I just want to point that out. And also, that Breath of the Wild mug. What is up with that? I feel like that was some beans, and I haven't wrapped my brain around it 100% yet, but the openness of that game, maybe? If he's got that mug, he's a big fan. They're building an open world game. They're building a game with a lot of climbing in it. Another big piece of the Zelda Breath of the Wild gameplay. I kind of feel like he's pulling some inspiration from that game, guys, and nothing but good can come from that because that game is freaking excellent. So that wasn't an accident, all right? Let me just say, Chris Perkins doesn't make accidents. He chose that mug to go live and get him a sip of right there in that moment, and that was all a little bit of beans. I'm telling you it was. Anyway, let's move forward.
Is the Codex. So let's take a quick look at the Codex, and then we'll have Chris Perkins talk a little bit about it. So I've got the Codex up here. This is what he's been working on.
But beyond just the aesthetic redesign, the other thing to hit on here is some of the special functionality of the Codex, and one of those things you can probably already see is that under each of the abilities we have a series of three kind of indentions where those you can see a few that have none, some that are full, and then some that only have a few. And this is kind of a visual just kind of sneak peek at the some of the Codex's ability modification functionality. We're going to be talking about that more soon, but essentially you're going to have some measure of control over how you develop your abilities, what kind of different little modifications and evolutions you're able to kind of open up for each of the abilities. And it's going to provide just a really significant amount of depth to class play, and it's a really interesting system, and I'm excited to share more about it. So feel free to make guesses on how it's going to work, but I think once we're able to really unfold it, it's something you guys are going to be really excited about.
All right, so as a lot of you are totally aware, I've made plenty of assumptions on how this is going to work, where you basically are going to have abilities in there. It does look like there's a lot of options. So in my last video I made very recently talking about the Codex, I actually assumed that maybe it would only be the spells found out in the world. You know, not the ones you just get, that everybody gets, but the ones you have to go out the Prime Scrolls, right? It looks like with the amount that are in here, still could be wrong, but it looks like this may actually be for every single ability, which is cool. Even more flexibility with each class. And you'll have those 3 slots where you can put in things that you also have to go out and farm and get, making the game better and more things to do, right? And then you can kind of tweak those things. Like, does it do a little bit extra damage? Does it have a slower cooldown? Does it whatever, right? We can make assumptions on what those could be all day long. And then you fill each slot, and then you kind of get to decide, right? Like, you can put things in certain slots and boost certain things in certain ways, and it gives you a lot of flexibility. And really, without ruining the fact that the class has its own identity, right? It still gives you some flexibility within that identity to do something really cool with your character, right? So I love it, and it's awesome, and I like the design. It looks beautiful. I see lots of tabs and all that kind of thing, which could lead to more and more things and upgrades as the game goes on and we get to future expansions. I can already see that they're thinking ahead of the game, and that's awesome. Now, let's move on to the next thing.
Of old wood in our last teaser trailer, but the team is now moving on to a different area of Fairvale called the Merc. Chris, you want to tell us a bit about the Merc?
I think you cut out there. Can you say it again? The what?
The Merc.
The Merc.
The Merc.
Yeah, cool. So as we are, looking more and more at Pre-Alpha 5, and as we're continuing to work more and more on Project Fairvale, obviously feeding into Pre-Alpha 5, we're continuing to work on several different areas of the game that are going to be included in that testing content. And so what you've seen so far is a little slice of old wood and that kind of picturesque footage with the falling leaves and the beautiful kind of fantasy forest environment. And then we've seen the Isle of the Infinite Storm, just a little snippet of that. And now we're moving into another area called the Merc, which our game designer Tim Wathen has been kind of spearheading and designing the layout and just kind of the overall feel of that area, and working really closely with Jimmy, our resident environment artist, world builder extraordinaire, Jimmy Lane, who's just fabulous. And so they're doing a lot of work on that area, getting it ready to go. And it's given us a really good opportunity to, when you look and consider the map that we've released, that most of you hopefully have seen at this point, having on the East Coast, Thrown Fast, Avenger's Pass, you've got Silent Plains, Fairvale, that kind of band. It's been really fun and really good lately to kind of double back and double down on our level ranges and kind of the level ranges of the content. And so there's actually a whole lot to consider with that, because it's when you start working on a new zone or a new area, it's this blank canvas of potential content and ideas, all of the points of interest, the who, what, where, when, why, and all this stuff. And you have to be very disciplined at how far you allow yourself to go in terms of how much content and how much are you going to fill that area with. Because what can happen is, if your level spread is too wide and too connected, then you're going to end up with players being able to level from level 1 to max without ever leaving the zone, or only ever having to go maybe to the adjacent zone to fill in those gaps. And so we've been doing a lot of thinking with as large as these areas are in Pantheon, and as we're starting to put more and more of this first continent of Kingsreach together, we're just taking special care right now to make sure that the level spread and kind of how we've laid everything out is holding true. Because we want players to move around. We want players to experience more of the world.
So I really like this section. That's why I included so much of it, because I really want to make sure you heard that part. I think that's what's, to me, the coolest part of the entire update, because it sounds like that they're trying to make sure that there's enough content spread out, because as they're designing these games and these hubs, right, from the starting cities, etc., it sounds like that they were worried about that people would only stay in the surrounding zones in that particular area around where their starting city, and could level up the entire game there and never even venture forth. If that's your problem, then that's a really great problem to have, right? Because that means we're feeling content like deeply, and the zones are massive, and there's a lot to explore and a lot to do there. But also, I would like to mention the fact of an issue that creeps up on games over time, which is that when you roll a new character, you don't want to do the same exact thing if you've done it 100 times. If there is enough content spread out amongst different areas, right, different starting cities, and there's enough there to do, then you actually want to roll another character to experience an entirely different leveling path. Of course, that has its issues too, right? Like, you need a population big enough for you to actually be able to get in groups in these massive zones, and all these options for the same level can get a little bit too much. So this is the kind of balancing act that they're playing, and it's really cool to hear them talk about it, and it makes your mouth water when you're hearing about how big the world and the zones are, and how much detail is in each one of those, and that the concern is that they put too much detail and they got too much design going on in each one, because typically you would probably expect a game made by an indie developer to maybe not have enough, right? I love the game Reign of Darkness. I think it's a fun option to play right now while we're waiting for Pantheon. Is there enough content there to keep you there for a year, for 2 years? I don't think so, right? It's a fun game. You're going to get a lot of good experiences out of it, but that's just kind of an example, right? That was made by one person though, so I mean, I'm definitely not talking bad about that, right? And he's developing and add more to the game as time goes on. But it kind of shows you the difference in development of a massive project like Pantheon going for AAA quality versus just developing the game as you go and limited content available and having to wait for more. So I do believe that this really laid out a really good story about what Pantheon Rise of Fallen is, which is this super deep, you're gonna miss things, right? Like, no matter what you do, you cannot, with one character leveling up on your journey from beginning to max level, see it all. During that span, you're gonna have to make choices on where you want to go to level up. Now, you may make those choices based on what you want to do and what you think is cool, and sometimes you might make those decisions based on, this is a popular spot right now and I can get a group there, therefore that's where I'm going. Okay, and that was very true in my opinion, from my experience with EverQuest. You would go wherever you felt like was the best place for experience, and sometimes you'd be like, screw it, I want to go to this place, I want to go to this dungeon, and I'm going to go there, and I'm going to find a freaking group, I'll figure it out, but I don't know if there's anything available, I'm going to go, I'm going to try, because that's where I want to level up, it's where I want to spend my weekend at, or whatever. And I love to hear it. It just lays out such a picturesque idea of what the gameplay will be like for Pantheon, and I loved it.
You want to know about KOS systems in the individual race cities, or deity KOS systems?
Meaning, if I am affiliated with this deity and I go to the city with people who are affiliated with that deity, they're going to attack me?
I think so.
Yeah. So this is a little bit of a can of worms, just because there is so much lore and important context to justify why I would say something like, it's not really going to involve the deities or the pantheons as much as it's going to involve the faction and the faction matrix. And so while that will definitely be, part of the experience, and that where I go, I'm going to be treated and responded to based on, if they like me or not, and my actions and the culmination of what I've done is going to determine whether they like me or not, or it may just be because I'm Darkmer and this particular race really doesn't like me. But that being said, and then of course, everything that comes with that in terms of like increasing faction, decreasing faction, like ways you can leverage faction to kind of create your own situation at any given time. I want to increase my faction with these people, or I do so just automatically because I'm over here, camping this stuff and it's ruining my faction with them, but it's actually increasing my faction over here. Or my personal favorite, when you do something and you you get a faction hit for something that you have absolutely no idea what it is, and it becomes kind of this. I remember I have from EverQuest is like that weird like Ali Au or Ali Zayu Lizardman faction stuff, where it was just intriguing to me that here I am like affecting my imprint within this world with things that I don't even really know what they are yet, nor did I know that Ali Teyu spelled backwards is we Zilla and Ali Velu backwards is we love Zilla. Anyway, it's fascinating to me, that idea of the faction matrix, that you can just do so much with creating a believable world that feels lived in, and it's exciting to me. But Pantheons will play a significant role in Pantheon. We actually have some exciting things to share about that at some point soon. So I know that's been a question that comes up a lot too, and hopefully we'll be able to speak more about that in time.
Yeah, I can't wait for that, but no beans on that today. No. All right, so
Faction. That was really cool to hear too. And, I think that's very important to the gameplay in a real world, in a thriving, breathing virtual world, is to have factions, and when you do things, it affects that, and there's all kinds of, the kill on sight if you go to the wrong city or around a specific race. I think also I would like to see the language thing be a part of that, but I don't know if that's going to be in there or not, just like in EverQuest, where you had to learn the different languages to even communicate with another player of a certain race, and, maybe not too much, but just a little bit of that would be cool as well. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments down below, but I always thought that was really cool in EverQuest. But of course, there's going to be factions and all that kind of thing. It's very cool to hear them confirm that. And guys, there's plenty more, but to be honest, some of the other main pieces, in my opinion, are going to be separate videos, because I can kind of make a whole video. I could have done on these topics too, but these were kind of the flashcard, real quick, what they kind of updated and what I thought was meaty out of our update that we got on the 16th. So I hope you guys enjoyed that today. Let me know in the comments down below, what did you think about the Breath of the Wild mug? Did that mean something? Was there some meaning there, or am I just a little bit too much conspiracal? Let me know in the comments down below what you think about that. And guys, let's talk about all the various subjects that went on, and until next time, God bless and happy gaming. Listen to what I say. I've been making videos all day. My friends all say I'm it's a video buffet, you can even hit replay. But please just subscribe. I can't even describe being part of my tribe. I'll even offer you a prize, but please just subscribe and hit the bell notification too.